We all need to drive more leads through AI search, and to do that, we need more content. Sitting right there is your blog with hundreds of posts. Could this represent a good opportunity if you could refresh that to drive more leads from old content? That's the topic we're going to dive into today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fired Up, the podcast for marketers working in early and late stage startups. Hello, my name is Morgan McClintock. Welcome to Fired Up, and I am joined today by Nicole Bytel. Hey, Nicole, how are you?
Hey, Morgan. I am great. How are you?
I'm in good shape. Thanks a lot. It's finally stopped raining here in San Francisco, so we're off to a good start. Today, we're going to be talking about how you drive new leads through old content, and particularly through the blog. We know that AI crawlers love fresh content. And so one opportunity is just to crank out a ton more. And obviously, lots of brands are doing that. But you've also got hundreds of posts, really good thought leadership stuff sitting there on the blog. But the crawlers are not going to look at that as much. So in this sort of zero-click AI-assisted world, what role would you say the company blog plays in the buyer journey?
So the company blog, it still plays a big role. I think we've all heard, the blog is dead. And we've also heard email's dead. We've heard PR is dead. Everything has died and come back. Okay, the blog is not dead. It plays a big role for a couple of reasons. One reason is that buyers are making their shortlists earlier than ever, and they're really sticking to those shortlists. I think it's 90% are coming in with a shortlist and picking somebody from that list. So if you are not visible right at the beginning of their research, the odds of you landing that customer are very slim. And so are they going to just magically come to your blog and read your brilliant thoughts? No. That is where a lot of the AI search comes in, because buyers are using AI as this research partner. We found about 89% of B2B buyers are using generative AI as part of their purchasing process. They're going into ChatGPT and they're saying, what are the best tools for this? What are the best platforms for that? Who are the leaders in this category? Things like that. And if you've got a lot of thought leadership on your blog, as they're doing that educational type research, you're going to be cited. And if you're cited, the odds of you getting on the short list are much, much higher. So it's not even about necessarily making your own website better. A lot of it is about getting into AI search. SEO is still a thing. I know people are saying that's dead. That is not either. There's an SEO play there too. And then later down in the funnel is where the blog can be really helpful for website visitors who are comparing and contrasting two different vendors. But early in the journey, you've got to be visible. You've got to have that educational content visible.
And if you look at the citations that your brand gets through a tool like Scrunch or Gumshoe in AI visibility, you will see that there are recent blog posts that are brought up, and there are old blog posts from years ago that you're like, wait, wow, okay, that's being surfaced. And so this sort of tells me, all right, new content is really important. And we know that if you publish new content, it can appear in AI search within weeks, maybe even days. It really likes the sort of freshness there. And there is a recency bias. But it also surfaces these old posts as well. And that could be problematic, right? Because some of that old posts, your messaging could have changed, things could have moved on, which sort of makes me think, right, the blog refresh, the sort of classic content marketing play. All right, you're going to, just extract more value out of your blog, having created it, is more important today than it ever has. Would you agree?
I totally agree. And honestly, most marketers, when they hear the words blog refresh, they probably just groan. It's the kind of thing like, yes, I should clean my closet. I should eat more broccoli. But both of those things just sound unpleasant. And I don't want to do them. And should I do them? Probably. Am I going to get around to it? Probably not. I don't want to scare people with, oh, a blog refresh. Oh, she wants me to go in and spend weeks or months on end refreshing old posts for no good reason. The point is there is a good reason. And this is not a super tactical exercise. It's not a super junior exercise.
Yeah.
It's really important. And it's important for a few reasons. So one, like you mentioned, is AI search, and it does tend to prefer recent thought leadership. That's not always the case, but most of the time you're going to see it pulling up pretty new stuff. You've probably got some great stuff on your blog that maybe you could just update a few stats and add a new publishing date to it, or add an updated on this day with and call it a day. Maybe you've got some new messaging. We've seen with one client, they have some old blog posts about AI, stuff that's a couple of years old. And their messaging and positioning and their POV on AI has changed dramatically since those blog posts were published. And so if somebody were to land on one of those, because they are getting traffic from organic search, they are getting traffic from AI search. If somebody's going to land there, they're getting the wrong message, the wrong POV, something totally outdated and something that the brand isn't using anymore. So that's another powerful reason, and a very senior strategic reason of where is our messaging old? Where are people landing? Where are we still getting traffic? And where do we need to clean up that messaging because it's not giving the right signal that we want to give to the market? So yes, this is something that brands should be doing, should be devoting some time to. Have a plan, have it running in the background, but it's not like cleaning your closet anymore.
This isn't a sort of junior task. This is something that you've got to focus on because those old posts are being surfaced through SEO and AI, and because you need more fresh content in order to drive leads in AI search today. So tell me, what are you seeing in terms of actual client data that proves buyers still use blogs as a sort of credibility and expertise check?
Yeah, we are seeing across the board with all of our clients that more and more time is being spent on the main blog page. And we're seeing that with Firebrand's website as well. I think what it is, my best hypothesis, is that a buyer wants this 30,000 foot view of what does this company specialize in? What do they talk about? What do they know? What are they experts in? And how do they talk about those things? And they want to get that very quickly and very easily. And a very easy way to do that is to go to your main blog page and just look at the titles and the little excerpts that you've got there. That is going to show what you know about how you talk about things. The blog plays a role that I don't think most people are thinking of, but we're seeing it in the metrics month after month. The time spent on the main blog page is typically longer than people are spending just on the site as a whole. And it keeps going up. It's not unusual for us to see somebody's average duration on the main blog page of 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. That's a long time for somebody to spend on one page. And so it is playing a role. Buyers want to see what you're talking about. So yes, that makes the case for new blog content, certainly. But my guess is that you've got some posts that can definitely be cleaned up and added and show up when that buyer is spending time on that page.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, isn't it? That you look at people seeing the blog parent page. That's what we're talking about, that masonry page with all the different sort of images and excerpts. That is the place that people are spending time. And if you think about your own behavior, when I'm researching companies, which I do a lot, I really look at their blog and see, hey, what threads are they talking about? What's their posting cadence? Is this consistent? How many voices have they got? What are the main themes? And then maybe I'll click into one or two to kind of see how detailed they are. And obviously, I'm looking at it through a marketing lens because I want to see what they're doing. But I imagine buyers are doing the same too. And so it's really important to have that consistent and looking good and updated. If you think about blogs and as a sort of brand authority in this sense, what signals do you think a well-maintained blog shows versus an outdated one when, buyers are in this early stage?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If your blog is old, if the most recent post is from 18 months ago, first off, the odds of you showing up in AI search are very slim. I mean, it happens, but it's slim. And just imagine a buyer coming and seeing that and then going to, say, your top competitor's website where they've got a very robust content strategy, including a blog that's updated. They've got a firm POV on what's happening in the market right now. That competitor is they're just going to look better and look stronger because they're just keeping up with putting their POV and putting their thought leadership out into the market. So think about it from the buyer's perspective. I know updating the blog, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work getting the SMEs to even grant interviews to ghostwriters. It's hard. People have more important things on their to-do list. But imagine it from a buyer perspective of, gosh, this company can't even maintain their own blog. Or what do they think about what happened 2 months ago? Do I really want to do business with them? Because I've got these guys over there that I know exactly what they think, and they've got a position on what's happening right now that really makes sense to me.
Right. So I am going to update the blog. We're going to do a refresh. How should we approach a project like that? There are hundreds of posts. Some of them are, hey, we had a great time at KubeCon, and here are some of our takeaways. But KubeCon 2022 isn't something that people are searching on. But others are product. They might be old product, but others are real thought leadership content. There's a mix in there. Tell us how, from a first principles perspective, we should tackle a project like that. And then let's dive into, all right, when I update them, what juice should we extract?
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of marketers get stuck. They think blog refresh, and they go, oh God, we have hundreds of posts. There's no way I can possibly do all that. And you're right. There are some posts that they don't need to be updated. They need to just go live in 2022 and stay there. I'll tell you how I tackle it. So I like to look at which blog posts are getting the most organic search traffic, which ones are getting the most AI search traffic, which ones are getting the most paid traffic. If you're paying to send people to your website, it better be to a blog post that is updated, but you'd be surprised at what we see. We're seeing clients out there on paid search sending people to blog posts that are years old. So I would start with those three things and look maybe over the past, I look over the past 12 months, what's getting the most traffic, and start there and start with 20 that are getting the most organic search traffic, 10 or 20 that are getting the most AI search traffic, 20 that are getting sizable CPC traffic, and talk to your paid media team. Say, where are you pointing people towards in these ads? Is there anything old that I need to go fix? That conversation is very important as well. But I tend to keep it in those three buckets because that keeps it manageable. And then you can go in and make the changes. Some of them might just need some new stats. There could be that. I know, for example, one of our blog posts at Firebrand that's done really well is Alistair wrote a great Google Ads benchmark blog post. And that was, gosh, probably a year ago about now. If he just goes in and makes an update with just some fresh benchmarks, that's an updated post. And that works really well. Done. You're done. So sometimes it's just a matter of updating statistics. Sometimes it's a matter of updating the CTA. We've seen clients where the CTA, the main end CTA at that blog post is to go register for an event that happened a year ago or 2 years ago. That's not helpful anymore, but if it's a good blog post, it can point to something else a lot more valuable, something further down the funnel. You can just change that CTA, and all of a sudden, that blog post that's getting all that organic search traffic or all that paid traffic is now leading to something that's actually valuable and something that's actually going to progress the buyer journey. So it could be as simple as that. Some of them just need a lot of love. We'll call it that. Maybe the messaging has evolved. Maybe you don't talk about your products that way anymore. Maybe you don't talk about the market that way anymore. Maybe your brand voice has changed a little bit. We have one client that just in the past couple of months has decided to use a lot more of the word you in their posts, where it's really this conversational. It's something they're really trying to emphasize. But these old posts don't have that. That wasn't part of the guidelines a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever these posts were created. So even just going back and making changes like that, some of them probably need to be ripped apart if they're that important, if they're getting that much traffic or they're that central to you as a brand. And that's where kind of some of the long, tedious work comes in. But some of these can be very light lifts, much lighter than you think, but keep it in those three buckets to keep it manageable.
So the ones that are getting the most traffic from those different sources, and then so there's a bit of an audit here, and then you might categorize them in terms of how much effort it's going to take. Is it a light touch or is this a full rewrite? And I guess there are some also that maybe don't get a lot of traffic, but that are important and you would like them to get more traffic. And so you might want to boost those up. And one of the ways, if I'm opening up the blog post, maybe I should make sure that it's SEO optimized. Maybe there's periods of time when, every brand, okay, we just got to get this out. We didn't optimize it at the time. Go back and do it. You could add some of those GEO features to them whilst you're doing them. I'm thinking about FAQs at the end, making sure that they've got a clear author, because AI Search loves they like an author. And maybe you posted it from, your company team and it didn't really have an author. So you could change that during this process too.
Yeah, that's a great point to make. Even if you just go in, even if it's got an author, if it's updated stats, it's got a CTA you like, adding those GEO elements can make a big difference. Anything that you can do to increase the odds that AI is going to mention and cite your brand, do it. And in the time it takes to come up with 3 or 5 FAQs at the end of a blog post could be well worth it. You could see traffic really go up if ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Claude, whoever gets a hold of one of those FAQs and really latches onto your blog post. That's something where, something that's a very low lift could have a very high reward.
And I think with the CTAs you had mentioned there, if you hard write them in, hey, if you're interested in this, come to see us again at KubeCon 2022, those are going to need to be updated. But you could just put in an actual CTA from HubSpot, right, in the bottom of these, in the structure. And that means that when that CTA is old, it could just get replaced. You'll know it's out of date and you could get replaced with a new one. And so if you're going through this process, you can also clean up the structure a little bit of your CTA so that those don't drive to some random outcome. And so I do think that's another thing to start. So we're going through this process. We've got our list. We're gradually grinding through it, but it's strategically important. How am I measuring the success of this kind of exercise so that I can balance how much effort to put on redoing the old posts and how much effort to put on new content?
Yeah, absolutely. Should a blog refresh be your content strategy? No. You still need the new content. It needs to be something that's running in the background. And that's why I prioritize it in those buckets, because it tells me where to start. If a certain blog post got 10,000 visits in the past year, I better get that done pretty quickly. This thing over here's only got 1,000. That one can wait. When it comes to measurement, there's definitely metrics where you can prove a tangible impact from what you're doing. And the first thing is AI-driven traffic. Are you getting more AI-driven traffic to that page? That's an easy one to measure. Another easy one to measure is average duration. Are people spending more time on the post, especially if it's one where you've updated your messaging and you just have a new point of view? If you can see that average session duration going up, you know that new messaging is resonating with the people who are reading it. Same with engagement rate. Are they clicking on links? Are they clicking on your CTA? Are they all of those things? Are they just more engaged with what you've put out? So that's 3 things right there that just you can literally just go into GA4 and look at and say, okay, here's the day that this post got updated. What's happened in the last 2 months versus the 2 months before that kind of thing. So it is very easy. It's not like let me do all this work and cross my fingers and hope that it works, but I'll never really know if it worked. there's definitely a way to measure for success.
And do you have a sense of how much effort I should put into a program like this, which is pretty worthy, but actually could be a massive impact and measurable compared to cranking out new content? If you had to split percentage-wise my efforts, what guidance would you give?
Yeah, I would definitely make the emphasis on new content with this kind of running in the background, because there's always going to be developments in your industry. There's always going to be something new and fresh to talk about. And you should never miss an opportunity to talk about that. So I would hate for some major thing to happen in the industry and you didn't put out a blog post about it because you were refreshing stuff from 18 months ago. So I would say, gosh, 75 or
Yeah.
80% on new content and the rest on the refresh. And yes, the refresh, some of it can be a very light lift with a big reward. Some of it is a lot more work. But yeah, you can't forget what the current content strategy is. This is really where refresh is really an optimization. It's a chance to really stand back and go, what's performing? What could be performing a little bit better? Where have things changed? And where can we just get a boost? And in that regard, it can also be a very valuable exercise to say, what topics are resonating? Even this thing from 3 years ago is still getting traffic. So people are searching for that. They still have questions about that. They still want to know more about that. That can be a trigger not just to refresh that one particular blog post, but it can give you ideas for new blog posts, just ideas that spin off of that. Like I just am constantly jotting down ideas like, oh, wait, this blog post over here that we just refreshed, gosh, that's 4 years old and it's still getting traffic. People are still spending time on it. Well, shoot, why don't we do a variation of it about this on a newer topic or AI's effect on whatever the topic was, things like that. So it can definitely inform what you're doing right now as well.
I like that idea because we've all got a few sort of heroic blog posts that outperform every one of the others. And you can strengthen the position of that by clustering other related blog posts around it. And from your own data, that is the topic that your audience loves. And the reverse is also true. Put out a blog post that you think is going to be brilliant and nobody cares about it. And that happens.
It
But you
happens.
can, yeah, it happens. But you can use this data by like, okay, this heroic blog post, like in our benchmarks, for example, these ad benchmarks, those are for LinkedIn. We could do them for Google. We could do them for Reddit. And you could easily expand that. You could then build on, all right, based on these benchmarks, here's our interpretation. So you can bolster the position of that blog post. And you probably have the same examples. If I'm rewriting these and I'm refreshing them, and I'm in the content team, I need to, first of all, make sure that everybody has buy-in to that, hey, maybe the cadence of fresh blog posts is going to go down because I'm going to spend 25% of my time getting more value out of, more demand out of this old content. Some of that material I can just update, adding FAQs, assigning an author, making sure that the author bios are built out. Some of it, though, if I'm rewriting, is going to need to go back through an approval loop. And so how do I make that judgment? And I guess if it's then or doing a full rewrite, then it becomes a bigger exercise, right? Not just to produce the content, but also to get the SMEs to approve it.
Yeah. And I think that's where having this collaboration on what is our point of view, what is our messaging, how do we talk about things? I may not be able to refresh a blog post with all of the details that a SME could give me. But if the SME and I are on the same page about our point of view, the way that we discuss things, what the messaging is, that is going to be a much lower hurdle to get approval on. And honestly, I would talk to my CMO or my CEO, depending on who's above me, and say, hey, here's what I want to do. Here's how I'm going to measure success. What are you comfortable with just getting updated? And where is that line of where we need some internal reviews? And you might be pleasantly surprised at just, hey, you know what? The messaging, go for it. It might be a lot fewer internal reviews than you thought, But even if there are some internal reviews, those full refreshes, they're not the bulk of this work. Because if you're spending a lot of time just rewriting old blog posts, like you might as well maybe clean it up a little bit and move on. If you're looking at everything and saying, oh, this needs a full rewrite, oh, this needs a full rewrite, you might just want to take it down and redirect it to something else. If it's that old and it's just that stale and your business has changed that much since it was published, is it really worth all that time when you could be creating something new? Probably not. So I would say in some cases, it's a good exercise of what can we take down and redirect?
Yeah, I like that concept. Whilst we're going back through them, the blog posts that are not getting any traffic anymore, they were timely, but now they're not. Should we just take those down and just thin it out a little bit to kind of let the ones which we really want the traffic to go to shine? Is that worthwhile?
Yeah, it is. Our SEO folks, they always look for zombie pages. That's what they call them. And it's pages that aren't getting much traffic, or maybe they're just not really right anymore. That just the messaging has changed so much, the brand has changed so much, the offerings have changed so much that they're just not quite right. And you may think that just letting them sit there and not get very much attention is fine, that it's like benign, who cares? But it confuses Google. Like when it's coming to crawl your site, it's coming and it's trying to see what are these folks talking about? What do they know? What are they true experts on? And if you're sending a bit of mixed messages with stuff that's just really old and outdated, you could confuse Google, which gives you an SEO problem. So, when it comes to the blog, you could just redirect to something else. That's better than leaving up something that's really antiquated, one, from an SEO perspective, and two, in case somebody does stumble upon it somehow, you don't want that to be the first impression of your brand. Especially if it's really bad, get rid of it.
Right. And that could be particularly relevant if your company has pivoted and you had a whole bunch of blog posts about your old company, focus on your old proposition. You got to start again. Or maybe you've made acquisitions and you've brought in their blogs and their content, and it's maybe relevant, but it's not the main focus of what you do. You've tried to get the value out of their content. Again, you've got to take this opportunity to refresh that and go, all right, maybe this is sending the wrong signal. As we're going through this exercise, are there other things that a content marketer should think about? Right, 2026, going to refresh the blog, squeeze this extra demand out of the value you've already got there. What other changes should I be making, if any?
So other things that you should consider is the creative. A lot of brands do refreshes over the years, and sometimes you get in front of those old blog posts and you cringe at what the header image is or what the styling looked like. That's something else to take into consideration because it should always look like it's coming from your brand. I call it the logo test. I always say, if I cover up your logo, can I tell from the look and feel, the way that it looks, the voice that you're using, can I tell that this is from your brand? And if you've got some stuff that's just from a really outdated visual identity, I would recommend updating the header image or doing whatever you need to do to get it up to speed. I wouldn't let that be a blocker, though. If your designer is already drowning in to-dos, a blog post header image it's not going to make or break demand. It's more about the content than the image. So yes, in a perfect world, we would update the imagery. If you don't have the bandwidth to do that, then that's okay. Don't let that stop you from refreshing the post.
The AI crawlers can't see the images. Your users, your visitors can see them when they look at that parent page. They're going to want to look at something nice and consistent. But what we're talking about here is getting more value from AI search. And the images are not critical to that, but I do think it's nice to have a great look. All right. Just as we wrap here, Nicole, any final thoughts about the role of the blog in driving AI search and just in the sort of buyer journey in general?
Yeah. I really cannot overstate how important the blog is. And we're seeing it in our clients' metrics. We're seeing it in our own metrics. And when you think about the buyer journey, Dream Data and LinkedIn put out some research a couple of months ago that said the average buyer journey is 211 days with 76 touches
76
across almost 4 channels. So that's a long time and a lot of touches and a lot of channels. And we're seeing that the blog plays a role in that. We talked about that main blog page and how long people are spending on it. Another thing that we look at is returning website visitors' behavior. Because if people aren't coming back to your website, you're not in consideration. You're not on the short list. Someone else has gotten picked. So we pay very close attention to returning visitors because in those 211 days, somebody is going to come back and check you out and hopefully multiple times. And one, they're going to want to see new thought leadership that they didn't see before. So if the blog hasn't changed in the last 6 months since they were there, that's not great. You don't have anything new as they're doing their due diligence. And also, you want to give them something that they can engage with. You want to do more to de-risk that decision. And the more thought leadership you can give them, the better. Just the more that it shows, hey, these guys, they know what they're talking about. I feel confident saying, hey, we should spend our money with these guys. You've got a very long way to go. We wish it was 11 days and not 211 days, but it's a long way to go. And buyers are really doing their due diligence. They don't want to get it wrong. They don't want to be responsible for spending budget on the wrong vendor. The more thought leadership you can give them, the better. And the blog is the perfect place to do it.
Yeah, that actually raises a great point there, that going through this blog refresh exercise is going to improve your visibility in AI search, which you should definitely measure and monitor. But the traffic coming in might not be coming straight to those posts, right? They might then just come straight to the homepage, direct. And so you should see an improvement in direct. And then if those people are engaged, then they will return as well, as you said. So I think that's an important point. Yes, measure the performance of these posts that we've done some work on. But the corollary is also they're going to come in direct as well, because that's showing that it's working. So overall AI traffic in general and just direct, because people just type it in, is another great way to measure this. And I love the idea about returning visitors, because 211 days, 76 touches. Wasn't there a time when we were saying it was 7 or 8? Now we're up to a lot more. And I think they said in that same report, there's about 7 people in the average buyer committee. So you're going to hit a lot of different stakeholders a lot of different times. And the blog is an important way to do that. And you're sitting on a great sort of lake of content there that could fuel more demand through AI search. Let's get at this project. All right, Nicole, thank you very much for walking us through that. I think you've got that clear, and we shall certainly be getting on to ours because we've got hundreds of posts there to work on. And I hope this all was useful for you. Thanks for your time. We look forward to seeing you all again this time next week.